thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us here at No Soundbites Allowed. That's right, it's your favorite host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I'm happy to be here with you because I appreciate you, every single one of you. You make it all worthwhile. And so I thank you for being here with us on the program at No Soundbites Allowed. Now, a lot of people may be familiar with the fact that over the weekend, I've started doing a new thing, which is Facebook Live. And we do a simulcast. It's about an hour and a half to allow people to have a chance to get involved. And we do it on Saturdays from 12 o'clock until 1:30, where I take live questions from everyone on Facebook. So you can always go and look me up. It's Michael Vasquez. You can find me on Facebook, and on any Saturday that we are doing it, I do have event pages up on this, and I'll include that in the link here on the podcast. You can go in, see me, and leave me a question, and I'll answer it about whatever issue or topic that you wish. And it's been very successful. We've got a couple of hundred people at each. We've done it twice now, a couple hundred people each time, and a lot of different questions on all kinds of subjects, from the international to the local and everything in between. And I love it. And it's fun to be informative and to tell people about what's going on. And we include links to the sources that I get my information from. I spend somewhere between, on any given day, I'd say probably 6 to 8 hours of reading and studying every day to be able to tell you all the things I do speak about. And that's why I have so many sources. And this way you can look up the information yourself, because we deal in fact here. We talk about the facts and the conclusion of those facts, which I believe is the best way to do political commentary. You work off of the facts and say, okay, these are the conclusions I have from that. You may have a different conclusion than I do, but if we're working from the facts first, then we have some credible opinions on this, and it makes sense, and we can go forward and hopefully find better solutions that may or may not be out there right now, as opposed to the other way around, which we see a lot. And this is why I particularly don't like the far left, because they use emotions. They're attacking and they're using propaganda to affect people's emotions without any facts, and it's trying to say that this is the best solution, even though the facts, if you were to actually look at them, very often contradict and dispute exactly what they're trying to do. Emotions, when you make laws and you make decisions based on deep emotion without any factual context, it rarely ever turns out to be a positive result. And that's true of us in our personal lives as well as our politics, so don't be surprised by that. I'm not. But there's a lot that I do want to talk about in this episode separate from that. And I do, again, invite you to be on the Facebook Live simulcast with this No Soundbites Allowed podcast. And you can also reach me by Twitter any other time during the week. I'm constantly on there at MV Consult. That's my Twitter profile, and you can reach me there, or my email of info@vossconsult.com, or my website, mvass.com. Which has been around for about 12 years now. So those are all the ways that you can find me and contact me, and I look forward to that. Now, I do also want to mention something about my Facebook page and any of my pages and any of my content. I don't like unfounded accusations. Over the weekend, there happened to be a Facebook user who decided to try and go to one of my older articles and try and put in content there, making an accusation against an elected official. And the accusation is unfounded. Now, it doesn't matter which elected official it is or what their political party is, because I don't care. Any time that there is an unfounded accusation, I delete it. I will not allow that to be on any of my sites, nor do I believe in that in any commentary. It's just wrong. It's one thing to say, here is a fact, I have a document, I have proof of something that I believe may or may not be illegal or wrong or corrupt or whatever it is, it may be, or just informational. And you have this conclusion based on that. That's one thing. I understand that. That's part of what I do to an extent. But it's an entirely other thing to say, well, this person is evil or wrong or is corrupt for no reason that can be proven. There is no factual basis to it. They just think that. I don't agree with that. I don't care if you're talking about Hillary Clinton, you're talking about Donald Trump, you're talking about President Obama, or any other official elected or even a candidate. If you don't have proof, then don't say it. It's not true. It's unfounded and it's wrong. And that's that emotional kind of attack that I disagree with, no matter what. It's just wrong and there's no reason for it. And since I'm going over a bunch of things updates that have happened over the weekend, many people may not have noticed that on a totally different track, there is the 9th annual SUNY Broome Homeless Awareness Sleep Out. This is the 9th time they've done it, where they will be sleeping outside overnight to give people some kind of connection to what it is to being homeless. And I was selected by the promoter of the event is a student by the name of Kevin Carr. And he has asked me to speak at the event on May 18th at 7 p.m. I'll be out speaking about my personal experience of being homeless, because it can happen to any of us. For me, I was about 24 years old when it happened, and I was living on the streets for a time, which was a very unique experience. It definitely affected my life without question. And I think anyone who goes through that will appreciate and understand how difficult it can be, because it can happen to any of us at any age, at any time in our lives. And it's something that we need to be aware of and try to help people, whether it's because of economics or it's mental disorders, the chances of fate. It could be a lot of different reasons why people become homeless. But in all of those cases, we want to be able to help them as much as possible. And I'm a very big proponent of, I want to teach you how to fish and not feed you fish. I want to show you the path, and you can take that path and improve your life. But I don't want to be the one who's there in charge of your life and basically enslaving you to a process where you can never improve yourself. You can only stay at that same level. I don't believe in that. I believe we should always strive to give people opportunities and show them the path so that they can take it themselves. And it means more to them, and they will do much better with their lives because they earned it. And no one can take that away from them. And no one can deny the growth that they have and the self-respect that they gain. So that's part of what I'm going to be speaking about on May 18th at 7 p.m. in Broome County, New York, at the 9th annual SUNY Broome Homeless Awareness Sleep Out. So I wanted to go over that. And so a lot of this beginning is just a lot of the details of things that are going on. And there's a lot. I stay very busy. But I did actually want to get into some real subjects here, and I'll try and get into that before the first break. And I just wanted to start off with Gina Haspell, who is the CIA nominee. And on Wednesday, which will be May 16th, she's expected to go to vote. The Senate will vote on whether or not she will be approved to become the first female to run the CIA director. And that would be quite impressive. And she's a very impressive woman. But a lot of people seem to have this problem with what happened with waterboarding. Because she was in the CIA at a time that there was waterboarding, they blame her. And they think that she's just evil. She's the devil. And now she's been through several of the Senate hearings. She's been answering a lot of questions about what she did and did not do. And one of the things she did not do is she did not waterboard anyone. That was not her job. And at the time, the waterboarding mandate under President Obama and before that was legal. It was legal for quite a time in our nation. So she didn't do anything. She didn't do it. And it wasn't illegal for the CIA to do it. But they seem to be wrapped up in this idea that it's so wrong for America to waterboard someone because it's considered torture. And anyone who ever was in the CIA during that time should be held accountable for it, even though they didn't do it. And I disagree with that. That seems to be ridiculous to me. Both, one, she didn't do it, so why hold it against her for it? Well, it's an excuse because it's actually politics. It's against President Trump, not her. Two, it goes by the very far left mantra that, well, we have to be very nice to our enemies. We have to be kind to our enemies. Even though our enemies, we're talking about ISIS, are individuals who cut people's heads off while they're alive and film it. I don't think they work on the same scale as many of these Democrats and liberals who are out there saying, well, no, we have to be nice. They're going to cut your head off, and they don't care what political affiliation you have. I think we need to know about that. They've run planes into buildings, killing hundreds and thousands of innocents for no reason other than they just don't like us. And it doesn't matter because we're free and we don't believe in the same religion that they believe in, and we don't believe it the same way that they believe it. And for them, that is reason enough to kill everyone else. If you're not them, they can kill you. That is their mentality. They've been very clear about that forever. And we are treating them with kid gloves because what? Some PC police officer somewhere is saying, at some university is saying, well, that's not nice. Really? Let's think about that. I mean, really, the whole issue of waterboarding just gets me riled up because I personally have absolutely no problem with hooking up car batteries to someone's testicles if that was necessary to save tens of thousands of lives. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. Call me evil, call me horrible. But, if you're talking about saving my mother's life, my brothers, my sisters, my nephews, my nieces, saving my friends and family members, my co-workers, if I want to save their lives by waterboarding somebody, yeah, that takes away 15 seconds of that person's life by waterboarding them. And I save people. I mean, I have nephews and nieces. They're, in their teens. And I'm going to save their 50, 60, 70 years of their lives. Yeah, I'll do that trade-off. That works fine for me. And if you want to give the waterboarding person, you want to give them psychological treatment afterwards, fantastic. That's on you. You can do that if you want. But I want the information. If there was a nuclear attack that was going to happen, God forbid, there's someone with a briefcase dirty bomb, and they're trying to go into New York City or into LA, Chicago, Washington, D.C. They're going to kill thousands of people. And you know that this one individual has some information that may be able to stop that. And all it takes is 15 seconds or 30 seconds of a waterboarding to get that out of them and save those lives. You know what? I do it. This isn't a movie. This is the real world. People die if we don't get information. People die because someone wants to be kind and gentle and, I don't feel nice. It's not supposed to feel nice. It's not something that you want to do. But at the same time, this is talking about lives. These are people who are willing to kill babies. And they do. We're talking about ISIS and fanatics, Islamic fanatics. We're talking about political fanatics. We're talking about zealots of every type who are willing to kill anyone and everyone because of their ideology. And whether that's the crazy guy at the softball field in D.C. trying to shoot Republicans because they're Republicans, or we're talking about ISIS beheading people because they're gay, or because they're women, or because they don't believe in the same religion that they believe in, there is no difference. These are people who are dangerous, and we're talking about saving their lives. And those are extremists, extreme individuals. Sometimes it takes extreme circumstances. Do I think you should waterboard somebody because they were jaywalking? No. Do I think that someone who is attempting to kill thousands of lives, does that person deserve to be waterboarded? Yeah, I can make that argument. I can sleep well at night with that thought. I really can. And perhaps it's because I've been in the military and I understand there is a trade-off. There is a trade-off for your freedom and safety that some things uncomfortable sometimes happen. But maybe that's just me. And I understand John McCain doesn't agree with that. And God bless him. I hope he's going to, I know the brain cancer, he's dying, and that is a sad thing. And I'm sorry for that. And I do hope his family, it's a tough time for them. And I'm sorry that they have to go through that. And I hope it's not going to be too devastating for them, that they can get past this and taking the time right now that they have to try and make peace with themselves and this situation. But in terms of, and I understand, he's been tortured. He truly has been tortured for decades. It was about a decade. And he had many years of this. So I can understand where he has a very personal, very visceral, emotional response to this. And it wasn't because they were trying to get information from him. They were just torturing him to torture him, which is horrendous. And for years. And at the Hanoi Hilton, it was horrendous. And I don't doubt, and I agree, that is torture for the sake of torture. And I don't agree with that. And I agree with Mr. McCain, we should never do that as a nation. But if we're talking about an act of war with imminent information and taking away 30 seconds of someone's life or something similar to that, we're not doing permanent damage, but we do have mission critical information we need immediately to save potentially thousands of lives. Yes, I do see a difference there. It isn't a slippery slope at all. It is a very clear definition, a very clear situation. And it's on us as a government, as a country, to make sure that we watch and we're aware of this so it doesn't become that slippery slope. I don't fault anyone in the Senate or anywhere in politics or even in personal life in saying, I want to make sure that we don't go too far, that we're not crossing that line. I understand that, and we should, but that doesn't mean we can't do it. I fear for the day that a plane crashes into a building in the United States, that a dirty bomb goes off in the United States, that some maniac goes around with a bomb or a car and kills hundreds, tens, hundreds, thousands of people because we were afraid to try and get the information from someone we had in our authorities, had them contained, had the ability to try and get the information from them. And because of someone's P.C. preference, political correctness, they didn't get the information and allowed people to die. Tens of thousands, potentially. I'm sorry. That's not a trade-off I would want to have. That won't let me sleep well at night. You may disagree. But what we'll do is we're going to take a quick break from this subject. But I do think it's important to know about Gina Haspell and that issue. And that's going to be coming up on Wednesday. We're going to hear a lot more about that, I have no doubt, this week. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming back to the No Soundbites Allowed podcast with your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. Now, I know that in the last segment I spent a lot of time talking about what's coming up, but I also was talking about the CIA director or nominee, Gina Haspell, and the vote that's coming up on Wednesday. But there was something else I wanted to mention about that, which is a little bit different. For people to get a very good understanding of waterboarding, or at least a different experience of that, there was an active duty Green Beret, and about 200,000 people have seen this. He did a Facebook Live video of him being waterboarded by his friends in his home for 30 minutes. And he wanted to do that just to show that it's not torture. And if I mispronounced Gina's name, by the way, it's Gina Haspell, not Haskell, Gina Haspell. And he was doing that in support of her nomination and to give a better perspective to members of Congress and the general public of what waterboarding consists of. So while there's a physical aspect, there's an emotional content to it. There's a lot to it. But in and of itself, it's not something that's going to kill you. It's not killing someone slowly or quickly. It's not like the movies. So it's something that you can look it up, and the Green Beret is Tim Kennedy, and it was on his Facebook page where he has that, and I would recommend people take a look at that, and you'll find it quite interesting. But moving on from the CIA, talking about another controversy that also this has gotten a lot less attention, and it's kind of surprising considering this is New York State, and you would think it would be very big news. And that is, of course, Sheldon Silver was on trial for the second time for corruption. He had been convicted already of federal corruption charges, and that was overturned, and then he had to go back and do it again. So he was on, again, it's the Supreme Court in 2016 reversed the ruling of the conviction, and then but the charges still existed, and so he was charged back. Well, lo and behold, through another trial, trying to say that, Sheldon Silver was this really great guy that was from his team and that he hadn't done anything wrong. And lo and behold, for the second time in court, he was found guilty yet again. And that's because everyone is very, very clear in New York State that the corruption in our legislative process, in our government, is extreme. Sheldon Silver held power for decades, and in those decades, he was corrupt. There is no question. We saw this now in 2 trials where it was very, very clear about his corruption. And that corruption included the Republican leadership in the House of the House, New York State House Assembly. Assembly. That included the Republican Dean Skelos, and the third person who was involved in this triumvirate that ruled over New York, and that is Governor Andrew Cuomo. And it's quite interesting that 2 of the 3 people who were involved in making laws for New York State and controlling the direction of the politics and the policy of New York State, 2 of them are in jail. Only one isn't. And that's Governor Andrew Cuomo, who's up for re-election. And I have to believe that when these 3, what New York State has constantly called it, the 3 men in a room, which would be Dean Skelos, Sheldon Silver, Andrew Cuomo, sitting down and designing all of the laws and all of the policy that New York State is going to follow. And part of the reason why New York State's policies are attempting to become a progressive capital right alongside California, and bankrupting the state in the process and driving out over 1 million people from the state in this process. 2 of those 3 people are in jail, and somehow we're led to believe that the one person who's left isn't corrupt. He wasn't aware that somehow Governor Andrew Cuomo was unaware of all of the corruption under Dean Skelos, under Sheldon Silver for decades, and during his entire time in office, he's never once been made aware or had any hint of the idea that they were corrupt. Are we really seriously meant to believe that? And so I think about that because we have the election coming up, and again, Governor Cuomo is running, and quite honestly, he's running for president of the United States in 2020. And governor of New York is just his in-between job to keep him busy until he can run for president. That's quite honestly what's going on. And it's been hinted on and spoken about in many media for a long time now. No one is surprised by this, that he is looking to become president because somehow he thinks that his mismanagement of New York State with its $4 billion in debt, the extra $1 billion in new taxes he just added onto the state after having driven out 1.2 million people over the last 8 years, having New York be the number 3, in some years, number 1 most exited state. We have a mass exodus that's been going on. We've been leading all other 50 states on this consistently. We have growing debt. We have the highest taxes. We are considered one of the worst, either 50th or 49th in terms of business friendliness. We're horrible with that. We're doing everything wrong except for attracting more and more of the liberal far left base that it seems Governor Andrew Cuomo thinks will get him reelected. They're a very small, they're a minority. Even among the Democrats, they're a minority, but yet they seem to maintain the biggest power in New York State. Whether it's because of the different groups that they have, they're all the same. You have your Citizen Action, your Working Families Party, Black Lives Matters, Veterans for Peace, all of them. They're all the same people working under different group names to make it sound like there's more of them, but quite honestly, it's the same people in just different organizations with different names. It's a trick. It's a political trick to make it sound like there's some kind of growth or some kind of trend, when in reality, it's the same handful of people running all of these things. And I just have to wonder, how can those groups stand behind Governor Cuomo and say, well, no, he's a good guy. He's not corrupt, except everyone else around him. Percoco, his very best friend, and one of his top aides in the Cuomo administration. Everyone around him is guilty of corruption, but somehow Governor Andrew Cuomo is the angel in the group who never did anything wrong. I mean, that's a far reach. That's stretching it so far. Does anyone actually believe that? Is there anyone who truly believes in New York politics that the guy at the top of the hill is the only person who has no idea that everyone else around him is corrupt? People that he personally knows and that he personally got into their positions of power? People he works with on a daily basis? He has no idea they have corruption? Really? It's a bit of a reach, but I wanted to bring that up. And the fact that Sheldon Silver has been convicted twice, confirming that he is very corrupt and was running the state in the most corrupt of manners, basically being the Taft, another version of Tammany Hall 2.0. It's amazing to me. And how the governor is able to run and have the support of so many Democrats, even though this corruption surrounds him. I don't understand it. I am confused by that. But I did want to bring it up because it didn't get a lot of news, even though it should. Considering we have an election year, considering Andrew Cuomo's connection to Sheldon Silver and the impact that this has, and all of the other corruption cases surrounding him, I think it's a big deal. And you don't have to believe me. Look up the news and ask your local officials why they would support Andrew Cuomo with all this corruption around him. I mean, I've asked that question of County Executive Anthony Picenti, as well as other officials like Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo. And so Republicans and Democrats of each who've come out to support Governor Cuomo, I've had to ask them, how can you support someone who, while not directly proven to be corrupt at this point, definitely has the implication of corruption surrounding him? I don't know. But that's something for you to ask, and maybe you know. One more thing before I take another quick break here. I just want to go over... Well, actually, what I'll do is I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to come right back, and we'll talk a little bit about Australia. Some very interesting news that happened out there. It's sad news in Australia, in Paris, but I think it's really important for people to know. And then I want to really finish up on something called the freedom checks, because I think that's a very important issue, and a lot of people don't know about it. But we'll take a quick break, then we'll come right back, and we'll finish up. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us back at No Soundbites Allowed. That's right, your favorite program and your favorite host, or some people's favorite host, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, Michael Voss. And I know there are some who don't love me that much. That's you, Citizen Action, talking to you. Folks, I've had lots of conversations with them. I've heard their comments about me online and such. And so I shouldn't pick at them, but I do. But that being said, I know that so far in this episode, we've been talking about the homeless event that's going to be happening in Binghamton on May 18th. Please look that up. It's on Facebook. I'll have a link to the event on the podcast. And I hope that you'll be there because being aware and trying to find ways to help those who are homeless is very important. And it's a non-political event. I'm not there to speak politically. I'm there because of my personal experience. And in the second, we went on in that first segment to also talk about waterboarding and Tim Kennedy and his video on being waterboarded, Green Beret, as well as his support for Gina Haspell, who's going to be the CIA, or most likely will get nominated as the CIA director on Wednesday, May 16th. And so that should be very interesting as well. We were talking a little bit in the second segment about Sheldon Silver and the corruption, and the second time that he's been convicted for corruption, and how that connects to Governor Cuomo as he's running for presumably president in 2020, but more directly as governor to be reelected, and how he's surrounded by this sea of corruption, and yet somehow he's supposed to be an island of non-corruption, of purity, which makes no sense whatsoever and seems very disingenuous, and yet he seems to get away with it, which boggles my mind, and I don't understand how people allow that to happen. But we can hope he might lose. Between Larry Sharpe and Mark Molinaro, there may be candidates who are strong enough to take him down. I don't think Cynthia Nixon is one of them. I think she's almost as bad as he is, but we'll see. So I do want to thank you, though, and by the way, for everyone. You show up on the show, you ask questions on our Facebook Live simulcast. You're here listening to me, and I do appreciate it, and I thank you for that because it's very important. But I wanted to finish up the show with a couple of issues you may not have heard about. And I'll have some links again to the sources for this because the sources are important. But what people may not have heard about is recently there was another mass shooting in Australia. And I know Australia is often cited as one of those places of perfection in the world. There are no mass shootings because everyone's guns were taken away, which isn't exactly true. And realistically, what happened is, again, they had another mass shooting. Just like many mass shootings here in the United States, the reasons for it don't really make sense. It seems the grandfather killed his daughter, his wife, his grandkids, because he wanted to commit suicide. It's sad. And there are as many reasons why people, apparently it seems, there are as many reasons why people commit mass shootings as there are reasons why people commit suicide or do anything else. There's almost the one thing that seems to be very consistent is that there are mental issues at play over and over and over again. And because of those mental issues, we have this outbreak of violence. I just mentioned Australia just because a lot of people, when I speak to them, and we're talking about, and I'm a very big First Amendment advocate, and I ask them, and they love to say, well, Australia had a gun ban, and, they don't have any more mass shootings. Well, one, it's not true. They do still have them, and they have them about as often as they had them before they had the gun ban. Mass shootings in Australia are uncommon. And I ask people this all the time. How many mass shootings did Australia have before their gun ban? And people just look at me and they don't have any idea. And it's about 1.3 per year. And how many have they had since the gun ban? Actually, that number is 2. Most people who hear about this stat, they're quoting a meme that they see. They have no idea what the actual fact is. So essentially, in Australia, there has been no change. They did implement a gun ban, And that's been in effect since 1996. But essentially, the numbers of deaths have been the same, attributable. And that doesn't mean that there isn't gun violence in Australia. It just means mass shootings aren't happening. So again, it's the way that people are being emotionally played that's very important there. And it kind of plays into something else because, and it's sad that this happened in Australia, but it also plays into and is part of another thing that happened that was rather sad in Paris. And some people may have heard about this, but again, just like the Australian news, it didn't get a lot of attention here in the United States. There aren't many people talking about it. And you have to wonder to yourself, why wouldn't this be news? Why isn't it being talked about? Because it doesn't match an agenda on the far left that is often promoted by the media, the mainstream news media, in letting you know information so that you can actually work on the facts and not the emotion. Since it doesn't match the emotional outcome that they want, they don't really talk about it. But if you did notice, and I do, there was an attack in Paris over the weekend. It was a knife attack, as a matter of fact. And in this knife attack went on for, it was a couple miles away from the Eiffel Tower near the Opera House in Paris. It lasted for 9 minutes. 9 minutes. So I often hear people say, well, if someone has a knife, you can just take them down. Well, this guy was running around with a knife, attacking people. He attacked 4 people. 1 died. One died, 4 were injured. So 5 people in total. And he was just randomly going around. He was attacking people for 9 minutes and was not stopped. And when the police did come up to try and stop him, they used a taser and it didn't work. So they tried to tase him and keep him alive and it didn't work. So they had to shoot him. That did work. So it's just interesting to me because you don't hear news about that. Why wasn't that on the news? It's very important. What is the reality if we take away firearms from the general public and the people are not able, the public is not able to defend itself? What are we going to be left with? Well, we still have mass shootings that happen. We still have regular gun violence that continues to happen. And we also have knife attacks that happen. And knife attacks are not this theoretical, well, any one person can stop them. Anyone can stop a knife attack. They last 9 minutes. 5 people were attacked. 4 were injured, 2 seriously. 1 person in addition was killed. That doesn't sound like something real simple. Where's that story that, 1 person can stop a knife attack? You don't need a gun. You don't need a gun, except this guy was tased. And then he was shot. And that's what stopped him when he was shot. But you don't need a gun. That's what the anti-Second Amendment advocates would have you be understanding. You don't need a gun, even though trained police officers using tasers couldn't stop this guy. He was running around Paris and he wasn't able to be stopped. And the only thing that did stop him was being shot. But you don't deserve to have a firearm to protect yourself. Really? By the way, the Paris attack is considered an act of terrorism. So there's that too. So there's ISIS, which has now, according to BBC News, there have been 230 ISIS attacks in Paris in the last 3 years, which exceeds the number of mass shootings in the United States. Just a stat for you to know there. But that's it's just terrifying to me because it flies in the face of what the anti-gun advocates would tell you. The people who are terrified of firearms, the people who are into the P.S.A movement, these people are telling you that you're going to be safe. You'll be safe because violence will go down. People won't be violent. And you don't have to worry about being attacked by some madman, someone who's crazed, mentally deranged, or in this case, a terrorist, a political terrorist. You don't have to worry about them because if they don't have a gun, they can't kill you. And they can't harm you. And yet, this guy in France, in Paris, running around for 9 minutes, was able to harm people. He did seriously injure 2. He did injure 4. He did kill 1. And he was not stopped with a taser. He was not stopped by other individuals, regular people who did try to stop him. They couldn't. He tried to break into a couple of restaurants, and the patrons pushed him off and stopped him. and he left and he fled, but they weren't able to stop him. And the only thing that did stop him was a gun. The police shot him after 9 minutes. Imagine if the police were tied up in traffic in Paris. Imagine, or maybe they already were, and that's why it took 9 minutes. I don't know. Imagine that. Maybe it took them 9 minutes because of the traffic, and Paris has horrible traffic. So imagine that they were stuck in traffic trying to get to wherever they last heard this guy was, track him down. How many people were injured? And you know what? If it was one individual concealed carry, how much sooner could this have ended? How many more lives could have been saved? How many less people would have been injured? Just think about that. Again, you don't have to agree with me. You can think I'm completely wrong, but these are facts. The fact is he was loose in Paris for 9 minutes. Fact is he injured 4 people, 2 of them seriously. Fact is he killed someone. Fact is he was not stopped by the general public like you're led to believe. Fact is he was stopped not with a taser, but with a gun. I have said it 3 times, and I say it 3 times because I want it to sink in. That's not what you're being told by the anti-Second Amendment people, because they don't want you to think about the reality. These are facts. This is the reality. There's a reason why firearms protect people. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, which has nothing to do with any of that, and is a little bit different. Today I was mentioned, it was brought to my attention by a listener, that there is this thing called a freedom check. And they were asking, what is a freedom check? They've seen it on the news basically since about April. We've been, I believe it was late March, April. There have been ads on TV and on the radio that have been promoting freedom checks, that you're able to get, that there's some $34.6 billion available to the public if they just invest in it. And they'll be able to get bucket loads of money. You'll just be able to get money, money, money. Matter of fact, I think one of their ads says to see how you can collect $24,075, $66,570, even $160,923 beginning today. And it is, and they were asking me, Mike, is this real? And the answer is no, it's not. Not entirely. Now, I can't call it a scam per se, but I can call it a fallacy. I can call it bad business practices. I can call it a horrible investment. A horrible investment. And I was a stockbroker for just under a decade, so I am familiar with a lot of investments and investment strategies. And this is not accurate. This is a manipulation. And I want to be very clear about that. Now, you may hear of this. This is, again, the freedom checks, and the company that's behind it will either go by one of 2 names. It'll either be Banyan Hill, B-A-N-Y-A-N Hill, or Sovereign Offshore Services, LLC, which are both part of the Banyan Hill Publishing, which is the main company. They are not accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Company was created back in 2006 in Florida, and they really started their activities and started ramping up in 2013. Now, they are an LLC. What is it? The principal of the company is an Aaron DeHoog, but they also have individuals, Amanda Farrow, Brant Huseman, and an Amanda Goss are all key figures in the company. And I bring this all up because I want people to be very clear about this, and you can look this up yourself. I will include the links. They are under investigation by the Better Business Bureau. 75% of all the been contacted by this Better Business Bureau. Customer review ratings, 75% of them are negative. And the reason for this is what this company does. And I'll also include a very nice review by the business affiliate Unguru. And you can look at that yourself. And he did a little more research on it, and I did some as well. And I confirm the things that he has here. The company isn't really about the investment. Now, the investment itself is what we call an MPL. And you're saying to yourself, well, Mike, that's fantastic, but what in the world does an MPL mean? Okay. An MPL is, oh God, I forgot the name of what it is. It's a type of investment. It actually is a real investment. There's several hundred of these companies, and what they are is basically, it's almost like a mutual fund. You can buy into these companies. They're it's master limited partnerships. So basically you're buying into a company, and that company brings in its revenues. It does its usual daily operations, usually in gas and oil companies. And because they work in the gas and oil industry, as long as they are able to distribute majority of their revenues, roughly about 90%, they distribute this, they're able to avoid taxes. So it's a tax shelter for the company, and it's a benefit for investors. This is only for accredited investors. If you are not an accredited investor, you can't take advantage of this, really. And by the way, an accredited investor is someone who makes over $200,000 a year in investments. That's according to the SEC. So if you don't, you're not an accredited investor, and this isn't even worth even talking about. Although this company isn't selling any of the MLPs, okay? They are not selling the master limited partnership. So you can't get that. That's not what they're looking to do. What they're selling is an advertising to their magazine, and they're not being honest about it. So they're telling you that if you put in $10, you're going to be able to you're going to reap all this money, and the more money you put in, the more you're going to make, and you're going to have this incredible return. Again, they try to quote that you're going to have returns in the range of $24,000 or more. Well, that's not exactly accurate. You see, if you have an MLP, you're going to make, and these are real companies out there, there's several hundred of them, they make on average somewhere between 5 to 9, maybe 10% in returns. So in the best case scenario, you'll earn 10% as an investment per year. So let's say that you put in $10, which is what they say. Freedom Checks or Banyan Hills, they say, you can start as little as $10. If you put in $10, you would make a net return at the end of the year of $1. It's a pretty far cry from $24,000. In fact, to be able to get $24,000 as a return, you'd have to put in $240,000, and you would get and in the best case scenario, your return would be 10%, $24,000. So you don't need Banyan Hill for that. And it is true that if you had an MLP, and I would advise you to talk to your stockbroker about making that investment, if it makes sense for you or not. But if you were to invest in that at the best case scenario, everything went perfectly, you had $240,000 in, you'd make $24,000 back. That's not for the average person. And that's a standard investment. There are other investments that do the same thing on the same amount of money. So they're misrepresenting the kind of return that you're going to get. They're misrepresenting that the actual purpose of their company is to, in fact, sign you up for other products, in particular their newsletter, which is you get charged for, and other services that they provide, which you get charged for. And they admit that they are not investors, and nor are they qualified to make investments. If you go to their website, they say that on their sales pitch. If you look at the small print underneath, it does mention that they are not qualified to talk about investment strategies with anyone who calls up, which means they're not here to make an investment. They're here to sell you their magazine. And they're selling the magazine on the idea that you're going to be able to make money, even though they're misrepresenting the actual amount of money you can make. So at the core of this, and I've gone a long way around, but I want to make sure I'm detailed on this, and I will include links on this. But at the end of the day, and the reason why the Better Business Bureau is currently looking at them and trying to investigate them since March 28th, 2018, to be exact, and ongoing, is that they are misrepresenting. And they are promising more than you will ever get, and misrepresenting and cross-selling. And I will include the link on the Better Business Bureau where they mention how they are cross-selling and upselling individuals on an entirely different product that has nothing to do with the MLP. And that is the big deal. So I tell you all right now, personally, I do not believe that a freedom check from Banyan Hill Banyan Hill Publishing or Sovereign Offshore Services LLC is a good investment. I do not believe that they're an investment at all, and I think that it's a sales gimmick to try and take your money by getting you sold, either on purpose or without your knowledge, on other products that they actually do sell. And that the best thing you can do is you can talk to your stockbroker or a qualified investment advisor to see how an MLP may or may not be in your best interest. But I absolutely tell you, do not get involved with this Freedom Check company. They are misrepresenting themselves, in my opinion. They are misrepresenting the investment, I believe. And I believe that they are seriously in trouble with this BBB, Better Business Bureau, and why they're under investigation and delaying their response to the Better Business Bureau as long as possible to be able to gain as much money as possible. Do not fall for these ads. This is just a bad deal. That's my opinion. You may not agree. I advise you, don't take my words. I'm a former stockbroker. Talk to a current stockbroker. Talk to a current investment advisor. Talk to your investment professional and see if it actually makes sense for you for an MLP, but not. And I strongly believe, and I would love to hear from any investment advisor who believes that Banyan Hill Publishing is qualified or a good investment. And I'd love to hear the reason why. And I don't think you'll ever find one. That's my opinion. And if Banyan Hill has any dispute with that, they can get on the show, and I'd be happy to hear from them to discuss the merits of the investment. I do understand investments, and I am qualified, and I am accredited, so I'll be happy to speak with them about why they think it's a good investment for the public. And so if they want to, I'll be happy to go over the economics and the investment value and the return on investment on this if they would like to. But until then, I strongly advise everyone who hears this, don't be involved. But with that said, I went through a lot of different ideas and a lot of different things. I hope everyone found value in this or found it interesting at the very least. And I look forward to speaking with you guys Saturday, which will be May 18th? May 19th. I will do another Facebook Live question and answer, taking your questions. I'll probably still be up from the night before with the homeless event, but I hope to see you there as well. Please let me know. Get in touch. Again, you can reach me on Twitter at mvconsult. You can get in touch at my email, info@vosconsult.com. You can reach me on Facebook under Michael Vasquez or any of my other sources. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I hope you're going to have a great week. We'll do it again very soon. Thank you.
Let's grow old. Oh, we'll buy that house upon the hill. Oh, let's be that story told. Oh, we'll play in the kitchen. Hell, I'll even do the dishes. Baby, let's grow old. Baby, let's grow old. I'll pull my act out of this bottle, and in these hands I hold crease notes and paper dreams of the lives are meant to lead. Baby, let's grow old. Let's grow old. Our hell living heaven won't deny us. Too bad that truth's a told. Setting fire to the fields once naked, now revealed. Baby, let's grow old. baby, 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 baby. Let's grow old. Oh, I'll settle for forever. Come on, baby, it's what we know. Our wishes, what a wishes, but life would be delicious. Baby, let's grow old. Let's grow old. Oh, we'll buy that house upon the hill. Oh, let's be that story told. Oh, we'll foreplay in the kitchen. Hell, I'll even